Hey guys, today we're going to talk about how to find slope of equations written in standard form. So the first thing we're going to do is just kind of review how we've been finding slope. Okay, when we see an equation that's not written in slope-intercept and y equals, what we do is we convert it. So we're going to change this equation and solve for y. Okay, and a common mistake here are some of you are going to want to do 6 minus 2x and get 4x, but remember you can't do that because they're not like terms, so it has to stay separated, and all I did was rewrite it to where the negative 2x is first and then the positive 6 is second. So the very last thing we want to do is divide everything by negative 3. So now we've converted it to y equals, and we get y equals 2/3 x minus 2. So now we're able to see what our slope is. We understand that our slope is 2/3. So we get 2/3. So again, essentially what we've been doing is converting standard form equations to slope-intercept form. Okay, and we do this by isolating the y, solving for y. Standard form is ax plus by equals c. And then we convert it to slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, which is exactly what we just did. So the first equation was in standard form, and then we converted it to slope-intercept form. So it's important to note two things when identifying equations written in standard form. The very first thing is that a is always positive. So the number in front of the x can't be negative. And then we have number two is a, b, and c are whole numbers. So that just means you can't have fractions or decimals. To help us better understand how we're able to easily identify the slope when an equation is written in standard form, we're going to go ahead and convert the actual equation ax plus by equals c, and we're going to solve for y. So just like we did in the previous example, okay, I want to isolate the y. That's my goal. So the very first thing is I want to subtract ax on both sides. Okay, just like you subtracted 2x from that very first example that we did. So we have by equals negative ax plus c, and then the last thing I want to do is if it's b times y, I want to divide that b so that I can have my y by itself. I have now just converted my equation that was in standard form. I converted it to slope-intercept form. So if you notice, my slope is the number in front of the x. So negative ab is my slope. Again, so we already know that in slope-intercept form, our slope is m. M is the number in front of the x. And we just learned that in standard form, our slope is negative a over b. So it's very similar to m, which is really m. It's representing m. So to help us better understand, we're going to try to find the slope of the following equations. Remember the little formula that we just learned, negative a over b. So my a is the number in front of the x, my b is the number in front of y, and c is the constant, although we don't really need that for this. Okay, so if it's negative a, I can say negative 2 over my b is negative 3. So I have negative 2 over negative 3, which is actually positive 2 over 3. And negative divided by negative is always positive. And if you notice, it took us about 5 seconds to find the slope as opposed to like about a minute or two that it took us from the very first example. So the example we just did right now is the exact same one we did in the very beginning. All right, so the next one, same thing. It's negative a over b. So I have negative 5, that's my a, and then my b is 6. So negative 5 over 6 is my slope. And so how cool is that? I was able to find my slope without having to convert it to y equals. And the same thing for number 3. So I'm going to have negative 10 over my b, which is 8. And that reduces down to negative 5 over 4. So now we're going to do the exact same thing we were doing with assignment 2-6, okay, in the notes. We're going to try to write the equation of a line that's parallel to this equation here that passes through this point here. So when two lines are parallel, I know that their slopes are the same. Therefore, I need to find the slope of this line. And I'm going to use that shortcut that we just learned. It's negative a, so negative 5 over b. My b is negative 10. So I get a positive 1/2. Therefore, if this equation has a slope of 1/2, my new line that I'm trying to find also has a slope of 1/2. Remember, parallel lines have the same slope. And I already know that my new line goes through this point, and my new line also has this slope. So I can use point slope. And at this point, once I have it in point slope form, remember that I really want my final answer to be in slope intercept, so I'm trying to solve for y, get it in y equals. So you need to go ahead and distribute the 1/2, and then add 1 on both sides. So I get y equals 1/2 x minus 2. Number 5 is very similar, except now I'm trying to find the equation of a line that's perpendicular. Remember that perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find the slope of the line it already gave me. So negative a over b, therefore it's negative 2 over negative 5, which a negative divided by negative, again, is a positive 2/5. So this equation has a slope of 2/5. Therefore, I'm trying to find a line that's perpendicular to that. So I have to flip the sign. Because that's a positive slope, my new slope over here is now negative. And I have to flip the fraction. So 2 over 5 now becomes 5 over 2. So my slope is negative 5/2. And so now for the equation of the new line that I'm trying to find, I know the point and I know the slope. So I can use point slope. Remember that where we have y minus a negative 2, we can erase those two negatives and just put a plus. So we get y equals negative 5/2 x plus 8. So number 6 is very similar to the last example. We're trying to find a line that's perpendicular. Therefore, we need to find the slope of this equation so that we can flip the sign, flip the fraction. So again, it's negative a over b. So we have a slope of negative 4. Therefore, a line that's perpendicular to that will have a positive slope, and 4 over 1 becomes 1 over 4. So now I have a point and a slope of the new equation. I can use point slope. And I get y equals 1/4 x plus 8. And real quick, I'm just going to write the 4 formulas that we talked about throughout these lessons.